The laugh ricocheted off the boutiques like a quarter dropped on marble, bright and careless, promising nothing and everything in one breath. The SUV sat there flashing its hazard lights beneath the silver letters of a luxury mall in Austin, Texas, Domain Northside, where the handbags had waiting lists, and the coffee came with tasting notes. Claire Bennett had just walked out of a leadership summit with applause still clinging to her blazer. The day loved her, the cameras loved her, the market, lately, did not. The engine coughed again, then died. Her assistants clustered with portable chargers and bottled water, their phones tilted like mirrors toward their own faces. A few suits from the conference stalled by, peeking over aviators. The air smelled like sunscreen and brake dust. And then a pickup rolled in that didn't belong here, the kind that knew gravel more than glass. A guy stepped out, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen a dozen summers and twice as many alternators. He was nobody. He was everyone. He was the kind of person you see on the edge of your life and assume he's not part of it, until he is. He had a name, Tyler Hayes, 34, shop on Burnett Road behind the pawn place with the neon guitar. A coil spring tattoo around his wrist that ended where the grease began. He looked at the SUV, the way some men look at baseball box scores, reading the pattern in the noise. "You stuck?" he asked, just enough drawl to soften the consonants. He didn't lower his gaze when he spoke to her. He didn't raise it either, just met her there, in the middle. Claire's smile turned into something glittering and mean because a crowd had formed and the moment had teeth. "Oh look," she said, glancing at a camera lens like it owed her a favor. "If you fix this engine, I'll marry you." The laugh again, lighter, sharper, like breaking a dry twig. Her people laughed on cue. Someone actually clapped. A red-headed assistant whispered, "This is gold," and lifted her phone higher. A timer started somewhere, 38,000 followers and climbing. Tyler didn't laugh. He thought about air and fuel and spark, and the way new engines tell on themselves if you listen. He didn't want to be part of a show. He wanted to silence the sound that didn't belong. The thin metallic tick riding under the stall. The stale tang of vapor in the heat. He kept his answers short because life had taught him that words burned faster than gasoline. "Pop the hood." He said it like a favor to the car, not a request to the owner. The hood latch released with a stubborn yawn. Hot air slapped his face. He rested a palm on the plastic engine cover, feeling vibration in the bones beneath the polymer. He didn't have a scanner, left it at the shop, but he had eyes and ears and a nose. The intake snorkel looked fine. The MAF sensor, clean. There though, at the rail, a fuel quick connect that wasn't seated all the way. It had the look of something nudged, not jarred, not wear, intention, odd. "Do you even know what you're looking at?" Someone snorted from the crowd. A man in a suit, cologne louder than his confidence. Tyler ignored him. He leaned closer, listened, then turned the cap on the coolant reservoir a quarter inch. No geyser, no burp. He nudged the connector back with thumb and forefinger until the clip sighed into place. Then, he followed the lines down and saw it. Under the engine splash shield, a thin zip tie cinched where no zip tie belonged. Small, nearly invisible, like a secret written in fishing line. He looked up. Claire was watching with her arms crossed, sunglasses reflecting the sun. The words she'd just flung into the air hung there between them, like a dare stuck in molasses. "So?" she said. "South." "So what?" He reached for his rag, wiped sweat off his neck. He touched the battery terminals. Secure. He cracked the oil cap and sampled the smell. Clean, synthetic, a dealership's touch. He pressed the key fob in the cup holder, listening to the relay click. The engine cranked, caught, and then, like a man deciding whether to stay or go, it hesitated. "Try it now," he said. Claire's assistant slid into the driver's seat. The push button glowed a hospital white. The engine coughed once, twice, then turned over smooth as expensive whiskey. A cheer went up that was more about content than relief. The redhead said, "Oh my God," and the comments poured in like rain on warm asphalt. "Marry him. He's low-key hot. You can tell he's lying." PR stunt, "I stand the grease king. Ice if you fix it." Tyler's stomach knotted. He should have left right then. He knew that in the same way he knew when a water pump was about to seize, by the faint whining he heard under the noise. But the car was talking again, and its voice didn't match the applause. He knelt, pushing his shoulder against the bumper to see the underbody. That's when he saw what hadn't been meant for sunlight: the brake line. On the passenger side, just out of casual view, the flexible hose sat wearing a kiss of clean metal, where something had sliced a shallow smile. Too clean, too deliberate. And clamped to the frame with a thin, expertly placed clip that would keep the cut from revealing itself until the next hard stop. The kind of trick you play if you want a scare, not a tragedy. Unless the scare got greedy. He stood up too fast, and the world went bright at the edges. "Don't drive this," he said, louder than he meant to. Claire's head tilted. "I thought you just—" "Brakes," he said. Just that. He didn't have the words for what his hands had just told him. And even if he did, would anyone hear them over a live stream? The assistant had the engine idling like a purr in a jewelry store. "It's fine," he said. "We have to make the afternoon panel at the Four Seasons." "Kill it," Tyler said. He kept his voice even, because shouting is how people stop listening. "Kill it and set the brake. No one drives this right now." The assistant rolled his eyes, but he did it. The engine died, and something in the silence rearranged itself. Claire dropped the sunglasses to her nose. Her eyes were the pale of someone who spent more time in conference rooms than in daylight. "What are you saying?" "That your brake line was cut," Tyler said. "And someone didn't want you to see it until it mattered." He thought he'd said it softly, but the microphones in a crowd weren't soft. They were thirsty. The words hit the phones first, then the faces, then a place in the back of somebody's throat where fear lived. Micro cliffhanger. 30,000 strangers leaned forward. So did the ones standing 10 feet away. "Tyler," he thought, hearing his own name as if someone else had spoken it. "Pick your next sentence." He swallowed. "If you don't believe me," he added, "get it up on a rack." A man in a polo with the mall's logo cleared his throat like it might convince the moment to behave. "We can call security," he said. "Or a tow." "Call both," Claire said, without looking away from Tyler. "And call Peter." Who was Peter? The PR guy. The one with the perfect hair and the mouth that never touched the bottom of his smile. The crowd shifted the way a mood shifts. Phones in the air. Somewhere, an Instagram Live ticked past 72,000. A breeze came, warm as a hairdryer. The SUV's black paint held it like a grudge. Tyler bent again, because work was a thing that didn't argue. He traced the brake line with his eyes, and then another detail caught him. The glove box, slightly ajar. He would not have noticed if the sunlight hadn't picked a line of dust to highlight, an absence in a thin gray film. He reached. The latch released with a plastic click. "Hey," the redhead snapped. "You can't." "I'm making sure no one left tools where they shouldn't have," he said, and pulled the compartment fully open. There it was, a flat thumb drive wedged in the corner like a secret someone had to stash in a hurry. Silver, unbranded, a nothing disguised as a nothing. He held it up. The lens of a phone blinked at him like an eye. Claire frowned. "What is that?" "Not mine," he said. And then, because the day had decided to be a conspiracy theorist, Peter strode up, a little sweaty around the hairline, even though the temperature inside the Four Seasons was always 68 degrees and indifferent to the outside world. "What's the situation?" he asked, already smiling at the cameras like he promised them a better angle. Tyler put the drive in his pocket without thinking why, just that it seemed safer there than anywhere else in this circus. He regretted it 3 beats later, because the assistant, the one with the 2 white sneakers, held up his phone higher and shouted, "Oh my God, did he just steal from the car?" It didn't matter that Tyler had found the thing in the glove box. It didn't matter that nobody knew what it was. A rumor always ran faster than the truth in places like this. The word steal had legs. "Back off," Tyler said, but it was too late. Claire raised a hand. The move was small, and something uncoiled in the crowd. Obedience, habit, maybe hunger. The phones didn't dip, but a few voices did. "Sir," a security guard said, voice arranged in polite squares, "I'm going to have to ask you—" "To stay," Tyler said. He surprised himself. "To stay until we get a tow." Claire blinked, not the reaction she expected. He had given her no villain to chase, just a problem to solve. Another timer started. A tow truck ETA sat at 23 minutes in the mall app, little digital wheels turning. "Peter," Claire murmured, eyes locked on Tyler's pocket. "Handle this." Peter's smile deepened, like a tire going flat in slow motion. "Of course." He turned to the camera nearest him and said, "We'll be releasing a statement shortly. Right now, our priority is safety. Claire Bennett puts people first. Somewhere, something inside Tyler cracked. Not loud, just a small line. He was about to be eaten by this, swallowed whole, and filmed doing it. He took his hand out of his pocket and showed it empty. Then, deliberately, he pulled the thumb drive and held it up, the sun catching its edge like a coin before a wish. I found this in your glove box, he said to Claire. You can have it, but I'd recommend you don't plug it into anything until someone looks at it somewhere quiet, where Peter isn't. It wasn't smooth, it wasn't strategic, it was the truth, and it had a smell like hot metal and rain. Claire glanced at Peter then, a real glance that knew it might be a mistake. He smiled back, professional teeth, and reached for the drive. Tyler stepped back. No offense, he said, which always meant offense. But the brake line didn't cut itself, and this didn't walk into the glove box. If it's nothing, great. If it's something... He let the end hang, a cliff built in a sentence. I'd want a chain of custody. The redhead whispered, chain of what? But the phrase caught someone else's ear. A lanky man at the back, with a reporter's bag and a reporter's posture, the kind that leaned when a story tilted. Inset, Matt, freelancer, mostly tech scandals. He had come for 5 quotes and a free press lunch. Now his body buzzed like a phone on silent. He had 2 kids and a political opinion and a record button under his thumb. He thought, don't blink. The tow arrived. The SUV rose on a metal cradle like a whale lifted out of the sea. Underneath, the clip looked innocent. The cut looked barely there. A mall manager squinted. An assistant swallowed. The camera dared the truth to show up on cue. Tyler wiped his hands again, the rag dark now. He heard in his head a voice from 6 years ago telling him that hands like his weren't allowed in places like this. He also heard a knock on a door at midnight 3 summers back, and the word misdemeanor in a tone that made it sound like a felony. He had a record, small but real. He'd taken a set of cobalt drill bits off a big box shelf when things were bad and never took that kind of chance again. He'd paid for it twice. Once in court, and once every time someone's eyes slid to his long brown wrists, and then to a security camera for a little extra assurance. He looked up and caught Claire watching him. Was she remembering her joke? Or was she calculating the cost of sticking to it? The panel starts at 4, one assistant whispered. If we get a statement trending by 3:30. Shut up, Claire said. A quiet shut up. The kind that meant, I heard myself in that laugh and didn't like the echo. She turned to Tyler. What do you want? She asked. It wasn't a sneer. It wasn't a trap. It sounded like a question no one had asked him in a decade. Nothing, he said. The word surprised him. Just don't die on Mopac because someone wanted a moment. She studied him. He couldn't tell if she believed him or if belief had anything to do with it. The tow truck growled. The crowd started to scatter, the way crowds do after the best part of a movie ends and the credits start to roll. Give me that drive, she said. Please. A new word, strange in her mouth. Tyler handed it over, but not to Peter, to Claire directly. He had just enough sense to ask softly, do you have anybody who actually knows what to do with something like this? Not PR no. Call it, Peter said. Call James, Claire said, at the same time. Peter's eyes chilled a degree. James who? She didn't answer. But later, because everything now happened later and online, people would freeze frame this moment, this exact frame, where her head turned a fraction toward Peter and away from the phones. They would circle it in red and call it the tilt. The tilt began. Tyler left. He had a timing belt waiting on a Silverado and a pile of invoices under a magnet shaped like an armadillo. He didn't look back until a car horn blipped, and when he did, he saw that the redhead had angled her phone to catch his profile leaving. She mouthed something, maybe sorry, maybe viral. But the sound was gone behind glass. The drive didn't stay silent. That evening, a message hit Claire's private line from an unknown number with a link to a secure server and a password made of nonsense. James, the kind of employee people don't mention in speeches because they live in server rooms and talk in acronyms, plugged the thumb drive into a quarantined, air-gapped machine that hummed like it didn't like being touched. Encrypted emails, he said after an hour, hair flattened by headphones. And not yours. Can you get in? I can get into anything. The question is whether we should. She stared at the monitor like it could forgive her for ideas she'd agreed to out loud in glass rooms. "Do it," she said, then softened. "Please." When the first message decrypted, James didn't hide the flinch. It wasn't a murder. It was something more ordinary and somehow uglier, a conversation between an outside consultant billed as brand experience and an inside team with too many slide decks and not enough ethics. "Soft attack," the consultant had written. "Staged vulnerability CEO, breakdowns trend. Suggest minor roadside failure post-conference, plus human interest response. Considerable upside if paired with micro-content. She's just like us, beat. Legal is comfortable if there's no risk." Claire didn't speak. James kept reading, the lines stark under LED light. The risk had a name. Mark Hall, competitor, bracelet thin smile, bent on acquiring her company in a way that looked tender on paper and felt like a choke. He hadn't masterminded it, not precisely. He'd laid out the preconditions, the way a gardener lays out sprinklers and lets the water act like weather. Then a second thread, a smaller one. Attachable narrative, a junior PR staffer had typed late at night. If roadside story underperforms, pivot to misdirection RE. Local mechanic. Available record indicates prior misdemeanor theft. Exploit to deflect. Angle. We were targeted by grifter. James didn't look at Claire then. He didn't need to. A new timer. Someone from the ops team leaked the email to a friend who knew a blogger who knew Matt, the freelancer. The friend messaged, "Not safe to sit on this." Matt's phone vibrated on his kitchen counter next to a bowl of cereal going soft. He read once, twice, 3 times. He texted a source at the city desk and stayed up past midnight shaping leadies like he was folding paper into planes. At 9 the next morning, an assistant pressed a tabloid onto Claire's polished table. "They found a mugshot," she said, eyes somewhere between pity and triumph. Tyler's face, tired, too honest for the camera, stared up from 10 years ago. "They're calling him a thief." The floor went out. Or maybe it had always been missing, and she only just noticed. Inset, Tyler, in the shop. Coffee gone cold and bitter on a blue workbench. The radio low, the kind of country that mentions trucks with a straight face. His phone binged, and then binged again. A friend, Elena from the garage next door, texted, "You okay?" He didn't answer. He stared at his own face on a screen and felt the old shame rise, like he was breathing through smoke. He had wanted ordinary. He had gotten spectacle. He could have raged. He could have posted. He could have put his head down and let the clip play him instead of the other way around. He did the one thing that made sense. He called a journalist. Not the ones in hair and makeup. The one with the bag and the posture. Matthew. "You still want that chain of custody?" he asked. He wasn't trying to sound clever. He sounded tired. Matt met him on the loading dock behind the shop where the shade didn't quite reach the grease stains. He brought a recorder and 2 coffees. He listened the way some people clean wounds, gently, unafraid of the blood. Tyler handed him a copy of the files James had given him, because James had reached out at 3 a.m. when his conscience overpowered his wiring. "Don't burn me," Tyler said. It wasn't a threat. It was a plea shaped like a joke. "I can't promise the fire," Matt said, "but I can promise to be the kind that actually sterilizes something." They shook hands. The recording red light winked awake. A third timer started. 48 hours until the board meeting, 90 minutes until the noon broadcast, 10 minutes until a social media manager somewhere made a terrible call. Because while this engine of scandal warmed, Claire's people, some of them, did the thing people do when truth corners them. They ran. One assistant tried a live video to get ahead of the story, voice shaky at the edges. "We had no idea," she said. "It was a soft attack. It was supposed to show." She realized mid-sentence that she'd just confessed, not deflected. Her eyes went wide. She knocked her own water with a flinch, and the paper cup crumpled like a timeline. Clip it. Upload it. Add captions. Watch it breed. By 2, the same commenters who had typed hearts now typed knives. Overnight, Rishidakshe, if you fix it, turned into CE, if you fake it. The city, which had been indifferent to a woman breaking down on the shoulder of a good story, suddenly had a favorite. The mechanic who didn't perform for the camera, who told the truth about a piece of plastic next to a piece of soft metal. Was Tyler a saint? He didn't feel like one. Saints didn't panic when the shop phone rang and an unfamiliar voice said, We'd like to talk sponsorships," in a tone that made sponsorships sound like a trap. Saints didn't stare at a letter from his landlord and think about how far overdue became eviction. He was a man with a socket set and a rent problem, and he had just become the internet's moral compass, a role nobody could keep without breaking. Claire watched the feeds for an hour, then 2. She watched herself, and then she watched Tyler. She watched the clip of the brake line and paused on the glitter of the cut. She watched the assistant say, "soft attack," like a child saying, "oops." She watched the old arrest photo and felt something ugly sear the soft part under her ribs. Who did she think she was? Who did they think he was? Who put a thumb on a scale and called it leadership? Her decision came like a door she hadn't planned on opening but couldn't ignore the knock of. She texted James, "Schedule a live, not a feed. Press the real thing." "Are you sure?" James wrote. "No," she replied, "but we're doing it." The lobby felt colder that day, like the AC was compensating for a fever. Reporters gathered with a hush before the bang. TikTokers leaned on marble half columns. Executives lined up behind Claire like hedges, decorative and brittle. Peter hovered, pallor too polished to show the crack in the mask. The board chair stood off to the side, reading something on a phone and grinding a tooth invisible to the cameras. Claire stepped up and found the microphone with one practical twist of her fingers. "Yesterday," she began, and a murmur went down the row like a wind through reeds. "Yesterday I laughed. I made a joke that wasn't a joke. I was careless with someone else's dignity." No PR person wrote that sentence. You could hear it in the seams. "I also learned," she continued, "that people who worked for me, people I hired, designed and pitched a staged breakdown for an authentic clip. That is a failure. It is my failure. I benefited from a system that rewarded manipulation and calculated it into our calendar." "Did you authorize it?" someone barked. "Yes," she said, not letting herself dodge. "Not the details you've seen, not the danger, but the strategy? Yes, and I regret it." A man in a sweater vest asked about legal exposure. A woman in a denim jacket asked about Mark Hall. Claire didn't say what her lawyers had told her. She said what her stomach insisted on. "We will cooperate with whatever this becomes." "And the mechanic?" someone shouted. The word had become a role, a symbol, a noun. Claire looked straight into the camera then, the way you look at someone across a table when the plates are gone, and it's just the check and the choices. Tyler Hayes told the truth about a dangerous situation, and he refused to exploit it. "My team tried to bury him in a narrative about his past. I'm sorry, and I've asked him to come by later today." A pause. "Not for a photo. For a question I should have asked yesterday. What do you want?" She turned. "Peter, you're fired." No drama. No relish. Just clean. Like cutting a line before it cuts you back. Micro cameras zoomed in on Peter's jaw when it stiffened and his cheeks when the blood left. He smiled anyway, the kind of smile you wear when you're holding a broken tooth with your tongue. "Effective immediately," she added, looking at 2 more people who suddenly found a spot on the floor wildly interesting. "And we are redirecting our PR budget for the quarter to an automotive scholarship fund at the community college on Weberville Road. There will be a display in our lobby, not of our products, but of the tools of the people who keep us moving, including the zip tie that almost made liars of us all." Zip tie. A small thing. All truth is. The press broke like glass. Headlines stuttered toward the world. By late afternoon, a lawyer with a nice watch and a loose tie summarized the potential charges like a weather report. Light showers of liability for those who thought weather was a metaphor. Mark Hall released a statement that tasted like a lemon rind. Tyler did come by. He changed his shirt first because he had taught himself that dignity sometimes starts with cotton. He still smelled like gear oil. He drove the same pickup that had no business in that parking lot and parked it in the same spot where the SUVs preened for selfies. He walked in past 2 receptionists who had judged him yesterday and offered him water today. He took it and said thanks anyway. Upstairs, the lobby had a glass cube now. It wasn't fancy, just a clear case with a brushed steel base. Inside lay a rag, folded, a little stained. Next to it, a zip tie pierced by a push pin on a white card. Someone had printed, "What almost fooled us." Tyler winced. It felt like a museum for a crime that had barely finished happening. Claire met him there, not at a podium. No entourage. She had dark circles under her eyes she didn't cover. They stood in front of the cube and stared like it would say something. "I'm not here for an apology," Tyler said. It came out blunt and a little harsh. "I'm not here to give you a job," Claire replied, and he could hear the resolve in it. "And I'm not going to offer you money for your silence. I'm here to ask, what do I want?" he finished, a small smile that didn't involve teeth. "Yeah." He thought about it. It was a longer thought than the room wanted. He could hear a printer in an office down the hall, and the whisper of a man rehearsing a lie into a phone. He thought about rent and pride, and the smell of hot sparks from a grinder. He thought about the past, the one he carried in his pocket like a receipt that wouldn't fade. "Fix my brakes," he said, and the joke surprised both of them. Then he got serious. "I want a training lift," he said, "at the community college. I want kids to learn something you can hold in your hands. And I want a line in your next speech that says the word vocational without making it sound like commute for kids who couldn't hack calculus." Claire nodded slowly. "Done," she said. Then, "Do you want us to put your rag in there?" She gestured at the cube. I don't know. People need something to look at." "My rag doesn't belong in your lobby," Tyler said. "It belongs in my truck." He hesitated, then pulled something else from his pocket. An old badge, scuffed, the laminated corner worn down from a decade of living in the wrong wallet. "Put this in there," he said. "It's the badge they printed when I got out of county. It's ugly. It's real. People should know that you can screw up and then fix things, one by one. Engines, mistakes. It doesn't erase anything. It adds to it." The badge lay next to the zip tie by late afternoon. Someone angled the light so it didn't glare. Inset. The red-headed assistant, home on her couch, phone face down for the first time in months. She stared at her hands and thought about how quickly she had turned a man into content and how long it might take to turn back. She texted an apology. Tyler didn't answer. She didn't expect him to. By evening, the story had mutated again, as stories do when they leave the mouth of the people who lived them and enter 1,000 kitchens. In one version, Tyler had been a Navy mechanic. He hadn't. In another, Claire had staged all of it, including her own regret. She hadn't, though the truth of that lived in a narrow alley most people never walked down. Something else shifted, quieter than trending tags. A board member resigned. A junior staffer got promoted because she had said the word no in a meeting where yes had ruined them. A second cube appeared in the lobby, with a notebook inside, pages filled with sketches of brake systems and torque specs, labeled in someone's neat hand. A sign read, "Learning, not spin." The scholarship fund opened. Applications poured in from kids with calloused fingers and kids with none. The first to receive a grant was a lanky 19-year-old named Javi who could drop an F-150 transmission like he was doing a card trick. Tyler shook his hand and felt something settle deeper than adrenaline. He still had customers yelling about turn times, still had a toilet in the back that didn't want to be what it was, still had a landlord who didn't believe in 9-day grace. But when people came in now, the UPS guy, the woman from the bakery next door, a retired teacher with an Accord that rattled, they didn't look through him to the television on the wall. They looked at him and saw a person who had interrupted a bad story with a true sentence and a clean fix. Weeks later, on a Wednesday, when the sky looked like aluminum and thunder rolled around Austin without picking a place to sit, Tyler saw a shadow fall across the shop threshold. He looked up, and there she was. No cameras, no assistants. Just Claire, in a denim jacket and sneakers that would have matched the mall better than the smell of carb cleaner. She didn't step on the clean square he kept by the door. She had that kind of respect now, small and certain. "Hi," she said. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been using it for work it wasn't built for. "Can I?" He nodded toward the stools near the counter. She sat. He poured coffee that didn't deserve its name. She drank it anyway. "Did you mean it?" she asked softly. "When you said not to die on Mopac for a moment." He almost laughed. "What a thing to lie about." They sat a while. It wasn't romance. It wasn't a deal. It was two people who had hurt each other without touching, and then tried to do something unfashionable, repair. The bell over the door jangled. A guy walked in, the kind who used brother like punctuation. "Man," he said to Tyler, "that story. My girlfriend was like, 'If you fix this engine, I'll marry you. Every time the Prius makes a sound now.'" Tyler smiled without giving it away. "Tell her to bring it by," he said. "I've got time." He did, and he didn't. Timers always ticked. Bills, oil changes, the slow drip of a world that wanted you to watch it and not touch it. But he had a new clock too, the kind that counts the right things. Quiet hours, satisfying noises, a bolt that gives at the right torque, not the wrong. Late one night, after the last car left and the radio went quiet, he stood in the doorway and breathed in the smell of hot metal cooling. He thought about the cube, the badge, the zip tie. He thought about the sentence that started it all like a dare wrapped in perfume. If you fix this engine, I'll marry you. The words had changed shape under pressure. They weren't a punchline anymore. They were a test you give yourself. Deserve what you do next. Make it count. He wiped his hands, flipped the lights, and left the shop to the moths that loved LED like it was sun. He saw her once more, weeks later at a taco truck on Lamar around midnight, where the cilantro was always fresh and the line always worth it. No cameras there either. Just a man and a woman and a vendor who forgot their names as soon as he handed them their plates. They ate off the hood of her own car, sitting on the curb like high school kids. They didn't say the sentence. They didn't need to. They shared salsa and low laughter and the relief of two people not pretending to be anything else. Some stories end with fireworks. This one settled like good oil into the places that needed it, coating the metal where friction lived, making the next mile softer. The lobby kept its cube. The shop kept its rag. Somewhere a kid held a wrench for the first time and didn't drop it. Somewhere else, a person who used to write strategies that treated humanity like a line item wrote a new one that started with the word listen. If you'd been there that first day, would you have laughed? Maybe. Would you have filmed? Probably. Did you see yourself in either of them? Too proud? Too quick? Too late? That's the thing about engines and people. They don't need perfection. They need someone who will hear the wrong sound and not pretend it's music. Promises are cheap. Follow through is the only currency.